I believe the children are our future. Teach them well and let them lead the way.
Yep, that was another good attention grabber. Got your attention.
My name is Latish Reed, and I'm an equity leadership consultant. And let's talk about equity.
This is week 6 of the stay-at-home orders. To be clear, I was never one to like to hang out, go out, but it's just something when they're telling you you can't go out.
Let's get it started. As you will remember from previous videos, this is the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction model to inform culturally responsive practices. This is the framework that we are using to discuss equity. This episode, we will be looking at if we believe all students can and will learn. And we will also be examining the systems that impact families and our students. And as usual, we will be looking at becoming more self-aware. This video is part of a 2-part topic. Do we believe all children can learn?
Now, that phrase probably appears in the majority of all school district and school missions and visions. John Dewey had a lot to say about education.
Dewey said that school is actually a microcosm of society, which means that we have to look at the broader society first before we begin to look at its impact on families, communities, and schools.
With that, we will start to investigate whether or not we believe that all people in our society have value.
We'll be discussing racial implications from our broader society. A lot of people will say, well, why do we always have to talk about race?
I will be using a few examples that are directly related to the value that we place upon race, because the experiences associated with race in many cases do supersede other identities. When you add the identity of race on top of other marginalized areas such as gender, gender identity, class, ability, the marginalization becomes that much more pronounced. So it's important that we isolate race to talk about that first. I would like to introduce some intellectual thinkers who have helped me inform my practice.
Dr. Muhammad Khalifa from the University of Minnesota actually wrote a book called Culturally Responsive School Leadership. This is a must read if you are interested in working with groups of school leaders and teacher leaders to bring about more equitable environments for our students. In Dr. Khalifa's introduction chapter, he talks a lot about the way our country has dealt with Native Americans, Asian Americans, Hispanics, and Black Americans. Black and brown people have been viewed as subhuman and to be oppressed into submission. Secondly, maybe oppression could be wrong, but if so, what we really need to do is double down and tame them so that they can be more like us.
So let's take a look at some of the documented examples of our value or non-value on various groups of people. You may be familiar with some of them already, but let's put them all together.
In the Constitution, 5 Black people actually equaled the value of 3 white people. And then there was the eugenics movement. This is the belief that you can reproduce a superior population by breeding those with positive traits. Here's the kicker. Negative traits were ascribed to people of color, while positive traits were associated with white people. So again, more value was placed on the white race. Then, of course, you had the Jim Crow era. And as you can see, these particular signs indicate that there were separate places for people who were considered to be less than.
To be clear, My parents literally were teenagers during the Jim Crow era. So we really are not that far removed from Jim Crow. Reggie Jackson, who is the head griot at America's Black Holocaust Museum, does lots of research and shares that with the public about Milwaukee's very intense segregation efforts. And many of those things are actually still in place today. Let's move to the era of COVID-19.
In the middle of a global pandemic, state politics reigned supreme in Wisconsin. After a nasty battle between the legislature and the governor, local municipalities were demanded and required to open polling places. What we learned is that the city of Milwaukee, which has a total population of 592,000 residents, had only a total of 5 polling places. Compare this to Madison, Wisconsin, which has a population of 258,000. They had a total of 66 polling locations. There was clear disenfranchisement for the citizens of Milwaukee.
By the way, at the time of this video, 52 cases had been linked back to the election day in Milwaukee. Next on the docket, we will talk about whose voice is valued. Now, I'm all good for a good protest, but
just as in many other cities across the country, thousands of people descended upon the state capitol in Wisconsin to protest Governor Evers' safe-at-home order. There were few masks, little social distancing, and even some guns. Even right down the street from my house in Brookfield, Wisconsin, a Milwaukee suburb, the Confederate flag actually flew out here in these streets.
I saw all of this on Facebook Live, and what I will tell you is that I did not see one arrest. I saw the police officers driving down the street telling people to make sure they stayed on the sidewalk. Now let's juxtapose these particular protests to some of the things that are happening in Milwaukee around the safe-at-home order.
Since the order went into effect, there have been 133 arrests made in Milwaukee.
Now, we don't know why these people were arrested, and many people have been cited, and that citation would be $500. We don't know why, but I know that they're getting them, but I know the protesters didn't get them.
State Representative Lakiesha Myers went on the record to discuss some of her challenges with this. She said that the rally held in the state capitol by individuals protesting the governor's safe-at-home order was clearly an exercise in white privilege. Even though a permit was denied and the Capitol building was even closed to the public, protesters openly defied the governor's directive by gathering en masse on the Capitol grounds while waving Confederate flags and carrying military-grade assault rifles. In any other situation, willful noncompliance with the law is met with the full force of law enforcement. Yet when the protesters are predominantly white and male, defiance is rewarded with inaction and complacency.
Where's the lie? Here's my last example from the COVID-19 crisis. We are still looking at our society's value of all people. On April 24th, Georgia was reopened by its governor. And what we know is that barbershops, bowling alleys, tattoo parlors, gyms, and nail salons were some of the places open. What's really interesting is the governor's mansion isn't open. However, these places with lots of non-social distancing environments are open. To be fair, a number of Atlanta influencers, the mayor, and different celebrities have come out to really appeal to the sensibilities of the community to make sure that they do, at all costs, observe the safe at home orders that should be in place. Okay, given the historical and current examples of how we have, as a society, treated Black and brown people, I ask you again, do you believe that all people have value in our society? Even though I've provided some facts, this could still be a rhetorical question to you. When all people are afforded dignity, we can then say that all people truly do have value. With that, I turn to another one of my colleagues, Dr. Decoteau Irby from the University of Illinois at Chicago, and he has studied what dignity is and actually has an upcoming edited book with some of his colleagues entitled Somebodiness, a call for dignity-affirming education. One of the tenets is substantive dignity, which means do people have what they need? And we have to ask ourselves in the middle of this pandemic, do people of color literally have what they need in order to be okay? The next concept is about relational dignity, or the confinement to a particular space. Like, are people segregated? Then there's the dignity of identity. Can you be who you are? Like, is that okay? Then there's the dignity of recognition, or being able to engage in society as a full member. That's problematic right now because voter suppression in 2020 is alive and well, and even the example of the disenfranchised citizens of Milwaukee during the recent primary election. Then finally, attributed dignity. What can you earn in the society and what do you have access to? Thinking about some of the things that I've had access to as a Black woman with a terminal degree, the road has been a little interesting, but that's another video. Dignity. And this is what the Black Lives Matter, Pride, Me Too movements are about. Individuals seeking dignity for themselves and other marginalized groups of people. If school is a microcosm of society, do we believe all children can learn within the context of our society? In the next video, we will take a look at if we truly do believe all students can learn or not, and what are some of the deficit mindsets that play into that, and finally, how can we dismantle some of those systems? Please make sure that you subscribe to my YouTube channel, comment on this video, like this video, and share this video. Thanks for watching.